Thursday afternoon chat. Your favorite artists with Jayar.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, will you please put your little paws together for today's guest, Mr. Colton Dixon. Thank you for taking a moment, sir.
Always good to see you.
So let's start with this obnoxious green screen behind us. With all the guests the past year, you already know this bit. So we give all the artists a chance to pick their background so that when we share these clips on socials, you'll see the pyramids in Egypt, the Grand Canyon, so on and so forth.
I love it.
A lot of artists go with something that's really like Need to Breathe. They're just a Grand Canyon type band, so they went
Very
Grand
fitting.
Canyon.
Yeah.
And so Tasha Layton, big song was Into the Sea, so she went underwater.
Yep.
So with you, I know you're a Lord of the Rings guy, so do I even have to ask?
You do not.
Okay, so
Take me to the Shire.
off we go.
Mm.
There we go. All right, now
This feels good.
Have you been before to New Zealand?
I haven't. I've
Okay.
been in spirit many times.
Yeah.
Love the films.
Oh yeah,
I'm not gonna nerd out right now. I promise.
but you are wearing a ring.
I might be wearing Aragorn's ring currently, present time.
I'm wearing Hobbit boxers, so that's awesome. Cool. So let's we are in the Shire. If you're viewing these clips on socials, this is good. The last 2 years, Colton, when Spotify does their year-end Wrapped, NF has been number 2.
Yep.
Number 1 2 years in a row.
Yep.
And the Hobbit soundtrack has been the number 2 song 2 years in a row on my, because
Incredible.
and I explained this to like guys from Hillsong, the guys that write all the Hillsong hits, that there's something about strings. We were in this deep conversation about their writing process at Hillsong, and I was like, there's something about the songs when you guys put strings, like God made our emotions. Strings does something to us.
Yes.
And there's something about every time Bilbo or Frodo refer to the Shire, it's that da-da-da-da-da, and it does something to you.
It does. I completely agree.
So if I have a bad day at work and I'm driving home, I will put on the Hobbit soundtrack because it just puts me in a calm place.
I am gonna do that on my way home. So thank you for that.
Well, I hope this doesn't lead you to a bad... Oh, that was so stressful. But the spiritual Tolkien was he sat in a pub with C.S. Lewis and they talked about their faith. They Narnia and the Hobbit came out of those brainstorming sessions together.
So cool.
So I look at every time they reference the Shire, to me, it's almost like a God moment. It's Bilbo refers to it as his armchair, his garden, his books. Yeah. It's peace and it's calm, almost as if it's, the world is a scary place, but God is the Shire in a sense.
Yeah, it's the safe place. It's the safe haven.
Yeah.
It's home.
Right.
Yeah, we just went through Lord of the Rings because Hannah Kerr or her husband had not seen Lord of the Rings. God rest their souls.
Can you imagine?
Man, yeah, I know. Like people in this room haven't seen it either. It's crazy. Blows my mind. But we went through them, and you're right. Like they're off in Isengard or at the brink of Mordor or wherever. We are nerding out hard right now. And then they have that moment where they reflect back on what home was like.
Yeah.
There's a moment where Frodo's like, man, I don't even remember what food or running water is like. Yeah. But then they make it back to the Shire, and it's just like, it's peace.
Well, even the ring. Think about the dynamic of the ring. I think I've quoted The Hobbit to my children because one of them was really into something, and I'm like, we watched The Hobbit so much. I'm like, the ring is not just about money. It's about it's sin. In a sense, the ring is the evil that all of us are capable of. And once you get it, it instantly starts eroding who you are.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be money. It can be anything.
Yep.
Can start to just, the way you watch Gollum just, become nothing.
Yeah. It's really sad, actually.
Yeah.
It is all consuming.
Yeah.
You take your eyes off of what they need to be on, which in our case obviously is God. You'll get consumed in whatever it is.
Yeah, this is going to be a really nerd moment, but Gandalf even tries to walk Bilbo off of killing Gandalf.
Frodo.
The guy who first had the ring. The Gollum.
Oh, Gollum.
Gollum. So Gandalf had to talk Bilbo out of killing Gollum because he's like, there's good so he's playing a Jesus figure he's like, no, everybody's redeemable. And even in the end, you see Gollum. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay.
It's so good.
I had the first segment of this interview was to give you a chance. It says, talk about whatever the artist wants to talk about. And I think we just accomplished that.
We did.
We need to discuss the most recent Winter Jam, which you came through a lot of our cities.
Yes.
And so, I guess for those that didn't go to the Tampa, Jacksonville, or Atlanta Winter Jam, what's the feel? Because you've been on Winter Jams before. What's the feel in a pandemic? I mean, was it with the crowds? How were the crowds? So on and so forth.
Man, it's so nice to be back with people. I know I've been longing for that, and that's kind of the general consensus. Sure, there are concert goers who that's kind of like what they do, that have been jonesing for concerts, but I feel like most people are just so excited to be back with people again, especially a tour this grand scale. You've got an arena filled with people who are all singing together and are all, for the most part, like-minded, and we're there for one purpose. And there's something so special in that. So honored to play a small role in that. But yeah, we always love getting to do the Winter Jam tours and really love and respect those guys a lot.
How do you pack for Winter Jam? Well, I guess you do come home for a few days, so it's not like the 3-month tours like you used to do.
I feel like with Winter Jam is you go out on your first weekend and then you realize all the things that you should have brought. Right. And then you're out the second weekend and then you realize all the things you should have brought. And that never ends until the tour's over.
Okay.
So like, for example, first weekend out, it's like you forget, oh, that's right. This is like one of the most competitive tours out there.
Yeah.
Didn't bring my table tennis racket. Dang it. So then next
week. Or a toothbruch.
Yeah. Or the essentials. Dang it. I only brought 2 pair of boxers.
It'll work.
You figure it out. You roll with the punches.
Is it weird to do Florida? Like when you're doing a winter tour, how weird is it to come do the Florida run and then you're in Iowa? Like you come feel 75 degrees and then the next week you're like, that's right. It's Winter Jam.
Florida is welcomed on Winter Jam. I wish there were more Florida dates on Winter Jam because then you're right. You do go up to Iowa or Wisconsin or something. It's like,
well, I picture like
that's why this tour is called Winter Jam.
Well, I picture like the NHL, like when somebody comes to play the Lightning or the Panthers, like it's winter in Edmonton.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we play Tampa Bay and you're in 75 degrees.
Man. I think they love it.
Yeah,
I think they do. I think they're lying if they don't love it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, let's go into Made to Fly.
Yeah.
Is this a Sugar Ray cover?
It's not. I actually don't even know that.
Oh, gosh, I'm old. I just want to fly. Mark McGrath, Sugar Ray.
Oh, yeah.
You must get Mark McGrath reference. Like you look like a little like Mark McGrath when he was big. Never mind.
He's a good looking dude.
I'm just going to stop. Let's talk about Elvis and other guys you don't know. Will You Walk Me Up, Made to Fly. Same album as Miracles?
Yeah, we released it as a single post the EP. And Made to Fly was, every artist has that song that was written directly out of quarantine, and that was the song for me. In Isaiah, there's a verse that says, "We will soar on wings like eagles. We will run and not grow weary. We will walk and not faint." And here I was trying to remember how to put one foot in front of the other again, just trying to remember how to do life and to do touring and to do how to walk, really, just the baby steps. And then here is God saying, you're made for so much more. So I really just kind of wrote this song for me. I was with a couple friends of mine. I'm like, man, I need this reminder here in this moment that God calls us to rise above whatever's going on in front of us, to see the bigger picture and to see the plan that he has for us. And that's kind of where Made to Fly came from.
I don't need to it's same with Danny Goki, same with Mandisa, some of our artists that were on American Idol. Notice I don't mention Lauren Daigle and Tasha Layton because they didn't make the round of... they got the boot before. How do you like that the biggest artist in the history of faith-based music didn't make the final?
That's the way it works sometimes, man. It's so funny. Yeah. Idol's a funny thing.
She's laughing all the way to the bank.
Yes, she is.
Right?
Yes, she is.
Do you still get recognized from American Idol days, and where how often does it happen?
It happens fairly often. What is so funny is like the part 2 of that. They'll go, "You were that guy on American Idol," and I'm like, "Well, what gave it away? It's always the hair."
Yeah.
But then they're like, "So how's the country music thing panning out for you?" And I'm like, "Did I ever do country music? I don't think I did.
Yeah.
Except for that one duet they made me do with the country singer on. But I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't think I ever did country music, but I'm gonna play along.
Right.
It's like it's great. It's
Anybody
going
like
very
I
well.
voted for you kind of a deal?
1,000%.
Okay.
What's so funny? I did Idol 2 seasons. First season, I didn't make it to the voting rounds.
Because
But
your sister.
Yes, all that stuff.
Yeah.
People still would come up to me after my first season and say, "I voted for you," and in my head, I'm going, "No, you didn't.
Yeah.
You're lying.
Yeah.
You're a liar."
Yeah. Wait, because the first year they took your sister, or neither of you.
They took both of us. She got cut in Hollywood Week, and I got cut like right before the live voting started. And then the next year, she went, and I got looped in with her.
That's right.
And then she got cut right where I did the year before. So she got cut right before live voting rounds, and I made it to the top 10.
You made it to the point where people were starting to say this guy's going to win it all, and then it was like a shock when you went out 7th or so. And we've talked about
I
this.
was a little disappointed, but yeah.
It was a shock. I think a lot of people had you going through, and we've talked about this before because I grew up with Jason Wade of Lifehouse.
Yes.
And he called you because you did one of his songs.
The coolest.
Yeah.
I still get giddy thinking about that.
Right.
Huge Lifehouse fan. But yeah, he's a good dude.
Did your wife know you post all of this?
I met my wife kind of in the middle of all of that.
Okay.
She was not an American Idol watcher. It was honestly when we met, I thought she was gorgeous. I'd be lying if I'd say anything else.
Thank you for
caught my
not
attention
lying.
First. Yeah. She's hot, but anyway.
Do I have to edit the word hot?
I
No,
don't
we're
think
gonna
so.
keep it. We're gonna keep it.
Yeah, we should. But when we met, it was so refreshing just to have like a down to earth conversation about life and about God and about all these other things, and we just hit it off, And so many things of what we wanted to do lined up, and we swapped information and went out and did the American Idol tour, and then the night it ended, we went out on our first date.
Oh,
and
cool!
It was just it's awesome.
How does she deal with girls running up taking pictures? How does she deal with all that?
I feel like it's been we've both had to navigate what that looks like, and even like going from dating to now being married to now especially having kids, I feel like there were different levels of boundaries,
Right.
and most people don't push those boundaries and they're fine, but every once in a while you meet someone who doesn't understand what a boundary is,
Right.
And you kind of, you try to be as nice as you can, but then at some point you have to be like, okay, you've crossed the line, which means I now have to respond this way. I'm sorry.
Right.
Kind of forced my hand here, but she's great. She's extremely understanding. And we didn't know each other really before all of it had taken off, so it's kind of all she knew.
Okay.
Which I think there are probably more pros than cons
Right.
there, but it's been great. She handles it really well.
Last time we had you face to face, you had just found out that you were having twin girls, and here we are 2 years later. What is the part of parenting they did not put in the brochure that has shocked you the most, perhaps?
Here's the thing, and my wife will be proud of me for answering this honestly. They probably did put it in the brochure, but I didn't read most of the
Right.
brochure because I'm a guy, right?
Yeah.
My wife was like going through all the books, and then she'd be telling me stuff and be like, wow, I didn't know that. You can't feed your kid peanut butter. Really? That's interesting. All these different things.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's the thing. Until they're like 2, I think. They're not supposed to have, or honey. That's what it is. Honey.
Okay.
Until they're like a year old.
I was like, oh no. I'm going to call my wife real quick. I guess at this
Honey.
point it's too late, but
There were some things that like far exceeded my expectations. Like any little thing new that they do, I get glossy eyed. I'm just they're walking, or it doesn't even have to be that big of a milestone. It could be like, oh my gosh, they just like looked and smiled at me. I'm like on cloud 9.
right.
And then there were some crazy diaper moments.
Yeah.
Crazy diaper moments.
I'll just tell you, one of mine, and I won't say which kid, found a way. We knew they were going to be artistic because they found a way to finger paint with something not paint. So we moved right after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't live in that same house after that moment.
Yeah,
But
that's understandable.
hopefully anybody's having an early dinner right now. You're welcome. So I will tell you this, enjoy, I don't want to sound like an old man, but enjoy every second, because right now I've got 18, 15, 12. And my wife has to keep telling me, she's like, they've moved on to new places, but you keep wanting to be the dad of little kids. And it's true because
Yeah.
I loved that era so much where everything I did, they were learning something new from me and we would roll around on the floor.
Yeah.
And she's like, you never graduated to their next step. You keep wanting to be dad of 3 little kids.
Yeah.
This is current information. This is something I'm dealing with right now because she's right.
Yeah.
That was the greatest window of my life.
Mm.
In 44 years, having 3 little kids was the greatest ever. But I have to join them in this new. So my 15-year-old is going through 15-year-old stuff. And she's like, Dad, you keep wanting me to snuggle and watch Hobbit with you.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't do that anymore. And I'm
Sure.
like, do you not like me anymore? She's like, no, I've just
Totally,
moved on to a new phase and you're not coming with me.
Yeah.
So there's I'm not your father.
I'm going to write that down and tuck it away for when we get there.
I could be your father, but I'm not your
I'm
father.
going to get all the snuggles I can get in the meantime.
Enjoy it right
Yeah.
now, but they're both girls, right?
Both girls,
So
yeah.
I had 8. So they were 2 little girls, my 2 little princesses that
Yeah.
we did everything together.
Yeah.
But they've moved on.
Yeah.
So
They want to bring you with them, though, which is
they
awesome.
do.
That's a big deal.
It's different.
Sure.
though.
Oh, sure.
Not as much snuggling. So you can't snuggle with me, Dad. I've got a boyfriend. 2 last questions here. Do you? I know you had a great. We've talked about it before. That your parents were great parents. You had a great home life, but we've never talked about what they do. And so the question would be, what was one of the perks of one of your parents' job? Like my dad works at a grocery store, so I got to walk the aisles when it was closed. Like no other kid got to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. My parents, my dad especially, but my mom would always be right there with him, were very much like the entrepreneurial type of person. But they were always trying things. My dad worked for the post office and kind of worked his way up there. And that was kind of like the job that was always reliable.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, we always have this, but I have time. So let's branch out and see what else we can get our hands on. So like my only other job besides music was painting faces, airbrush face painting. So like
Your dad?
yeah, my dad
okay.
started his own company, and then I would do that as well. So we would paint faces at Predators games together and
wow.
Tennessee Titans games, and that was a huge perk. We would
Yeah.
get to sit and watch the games, especially back then. They would basically pay you to stay and watch the game. So
Right.
we got to watch tons of hockey games. That's why I'm such a big hockey fan today.
Yeah.
And it was just them like going out on a whim and saying, "Hey, we have this airbrush face painting business," which they didn't yet, but
Yeah.
no one knew that.
Fake it till you make
Fake
it.
it till you make it. They're the definition of that.
Yeah.
And man, that was just always so fun. But they're always doing something. And now they own an escape room about
cool.
40 minutes south of here, and an axe throwing place as well. So they just love
On
the
top of the
entertainment
trends.
side. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're
So
doing
is
it.
it safe to say your dad knows where everybody in Murfreesboro lives?
It's grown a lot in the last
Okay.
few years, but they know a lot of people in Murfreesboro.
I heard
Yeah.
it's the Nashville, Murfreesboro, at least a couple of years ago, were like the top 10 fastest growing cities in America.
Yeah, it
those
feels
two.
like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Hopefully he held on to his house. Like,
Yeah.
you bought property in Murfreesboro back then.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
They're
the only
sitting on a
sad-
nice little nest egg. Yeah.
There was a rush. My kids are still bummed about this. We were in Murfreesboro a couple of years ago, and we bonded as a family at this restaurant that allowed you to cook your own pancakes right on a grill. And they moved it up to Nashville.
What was it called?
Something about flipping.
Um,
But like, you're the one working. You're
it's not
pouring
the egg
batter.
and I. I
forget.
know where it is, or I know
Yeah.
where it used to be, because before that was there, it was a like Mongolian stir fry place called Golden Eagle, and it went out of business. I was so sad.
Something about that spot, because nothing
Something
can
about- I
stay
know.
there. Because we purposely got off the exit in Murfreesboro to go back to. We have pictures. We bonded.
no.
We got up and we're GPS trying to find it, and it's like it should be right here. And then after we Google, we're like, they moved the operation to Nashville and left. But you pour your own pancakes. Basically, it's a great business idea because you get the customer to work. Like, I'm surprised we didn't have to do
100%.
dishes after.
It's it's like what's the fondue place? Famous like
Oh yeah, melting pot.
It's like melting pot for breakfast.
Yeah.
Awesome idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Last question. YouVersion Bible app last year, they always put out what's the most searched for highlighted scriptures on YouVersion. So I'm going to play off that here in 2022 and ask you, what is your, from last year, what would you say was the one that captivated you the most for whatever reason?
Man, to me, last year, and honestly this year, I saw the light becoming lighter and the dark becoming darker. And John 10:10 says, the enemy comes to steal, kill, destroy, but I have come to give you life and life more abundant. So that song inspired another one of my songs called The Devil is a Liar. And it just became so obvious to me, like what the enemy was behind last year. Like it was blatantly obvious. I'm like, I saw it clear as day. And I don't know if that was because I was more intentional about spending time with God, so things just became clearer to me. But that verse was almost kind of like my, like, what would Jesus do motto. It's like if something was going on in life, I would go, enemy or God, what is it? And once I put it in the right category, it was just easier to navigate through it and know, okay, if this is of God, then I need to cling to it. And if it's not, then I just need to brush it to the side and keep plowing forward. So that was a verse that I kept coming back to.
Cool. We've been ending all the interviews with, if you wouldn't mind, because all of the guests I have are pretty much lead singers. And so allowing you to, if you wouldn't mind, create a Jayar Show jingle that I can play throughout the year whenever I play Colton Dixon.
Oh my gosh.
And just toying around with is the Jayar Show? Like just hearing your voice sing the Jayar Show so I can play it.
This is the Jayar Show. Yep.
One take. Boom. Always appreciate the time. Great to catch up with you. Thank you, Colton.
Always.
Oh, new music coming later this year.
It is coming. It's coming.
Okay.
I can't give you a date, but it's coming, and I'm so stoked about it.
We'll talk to you then.
All right.
The Thursday Afternoon Chat. Your favorite artists with Jayar.